Welcome to the UCLA Film and Television Archive. My name is Beandrea July. I'm a film programmer here, and I am absolutely delighted to present the LA premiere of Shireen Seno's Nervous Translation. Um, how many of you all are here for the first time tonight? I'm just curious. Okay, I see a few, and then I see some regulars as well. So happy to have you all here to see this wonderful film. Just some announcements. So, this free screening with all of our year round public programming is made possible by the generosity of an anonymous donor and our partners here at the Hammer. Special thanks to our community partners for tonight's program, in particular the UCLA Asian American Studies Center and the UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television, as well as our community partners for the entire Beyond Barbie series, Film Fatales, Las Fotos Project, UCLA Center for the Study of Women, Barbra Streisand Center, UCLA International Institute, and Women Under the Influence. Also want to give a big shout out to our incredible archive staff, without whom none of these programs would be possible. I'm going to give them a little hand. Also, just a housekeeping note. So you're welcome to take photos, videos before and after the screenings. We prefer if you didn't take video during the films themselves. And if you'd like to share about your experience tonight, you're welcome to tag us at UCLA FTV Archive. That's UCLA FTV Archive on social media. You can also leave a review for this film on Letterboxd and mention that you saw the film here. And if you want to know more about our upcoming screenings, visit cinema.ucla.edu. We have a great newsletter. We also have a great Instagram account you can follow too if you don't want more emails in your inbox, which I relate to. Without any further ado, I'd like to bring up Shireen Seno, the filmmaker of Nervous Translation, who will share a few words about the film.
Thank you, Beandrea. And thanks everyone for coming out tonight. It's really nice to see a mix of some old friends and new friends. This is my second feature-length film. And I was kind of stuck actually after my first film what I would work on next. And I had a dream, and in my dream I was told to go to my relatives to look for a pen for nervous translation. And I was like, it's kind of weird. Nervous is kind of usually associated with like nervous system, nervous breakdowns. So I was really curious about what that could mean. I don't like to say too much about the film, but I hope you guys stick around. We'll have a Q&A afterwards with our good friend Jasmine Trice from UCLA. Maybe I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Shireen. I just want to tell you a little bit about the film that's going to play first, which is a short film from Maria Estela Paiso. Maybe I'm unlucky because I cut my nails at night. It's a 5-minute short that is kind of built around a common superstition, and she makes it into this haunting meditation on political erasure and historical memory. So that's screening on digital. It's 5 minutes. And as Shireen said, after Nervous Translation, we will have a talkback with Shireen and UCLA Associate Professor Jasmine Nadua Trice. So that'll be a great conversation, and we hope to see you back here. Thank you so much for being here. Wasn't that beautiful? So poetic. So I'm just going to introduce our guests for the evening and let them get started with their conversation. First, I'd like to introduce Jasmine Nadua Trice, who is an associate professor in UCLA's Department of Film, Television, and Digital Media. She's a scholar of film and media whose work explores cinema cultures across Southeast Asia and the U.S., with a focus on exhibition, space, and public culture. Her first book, City of Screens, from Duke University Press in 2021, examines alternative film circuits in early 2000s Manila. She's currently co-authoring a second book on regional film organizing in Southeast Asia. Trice's research has been widely published, and she's also a dedicated teacher and mentor. Welcome, Jasmine Nadua Trice. And of course, I would love to introduce formally Shireen Seno, who is an artist and filmmaker whose work explores memory, history, and image making, often through the lens of home and displacement. In addition to Nervous Translation, she is also the director of the film Big Boy from 2012, a coming of age tale about a boy and his family in 1950s Mindoro, Philippines. Both of her critically acclaimed features have screened widely and received awards at festivals including Rotterdam, Punto de Vista, Shanghai, and Lima Independiente. Her work has been shown at institutions such as Tate Modern and the Museum of the Moving Image. She's a recipient of the 2018 13 Artists Award from the Cultural Center of the Philippines and also a co-founder of Los Otros, an artist-run film lab in Manila. She was a 2022 Film Fellow of the DAAD Artists in Berlin program, where she presented her first European solo exhibition. And in 2023, she served as visiting professor for Arte Visione in Milan. Please welcome Shireen Seno.
I realized, I was telling Beandrea, I was like, I don't think I've seen it projected before. And it was amazing. I caught so many details. So yeah, I'd love to ask you about the film and about maybe we could start off by thinking or talking about the setting, because it all takes place in this really sort of mostly takes place in this kind of confined domestic space, and that's sort of haunted by the presence of her father, who's working overseas, as many people did at the time. It was sort of this labor export economy of the mid 1980s. So you have these audio cassette letters that are coming to their home, and filling the home with his voice and his absence. And then you have these other sort of consumer technologies like the television, which is broadcasting sort of the aftermath of the people power movement that ousted Marcos, and sort of the inside of their home with all of those like consumer goods being kind of displayed. And so it really locates you in space and time. And also I a lot of the furniture and stuff, like my parents have the same ones from the, so it's really kind of iconic. Anyway, I was curious about how you came to set the film in that time period and in that location.
Thank you for the wonderful question. So I wanted to set this film just after the People Power Revolution, as you said, and it was a time when I was born in 1983 in Japan. My mom was a teacher at an international school, so I grew up really kind of representing the Philippines in an international school, but kind of reluctant to do so. I felt really disconnected from my culture, from the country. So I felt I was just so privileged in this comfortable middle class upbringing, and so oblivious to what was going on in the Philippines, also in Japan, because it was kind of like a bubble, this kind of international school, and it was the height of the bubble economy in Japan. So it was like we were this wealth was there's so many goods, there's so much stuff to be bought and sold, and I guess I grew up kind of in most of the time left to my own devices, and so I was surrounded by these things. My dad didn't talk so much, but he influenced me a lot. He would come home with these boom boxes that he found on the streets of Tokyo that people had discarded. And he would, he would just find a way to make them work again. And then so I grew up, these are my toys growing up. I was like playing with boom boxes and just like things that he found new lives for. So I think because he didn't talk so much, because my parents didn't really talk about the Philippines so much, I feel like I was sort of always piecing together different pieces, different fragments of them and of their past together, and a lot of them came through watching movies, like just all these fragments, and recorded TV shows, and so all these different kind of media, and then also the revolution, like news clips of the revolution. So I feel like, yeah, I was always trying to piece together where I was coming from. Um, and so when I thought about writing this film, so it came from a very personal place, but I did a lot of research about the time, and I wanted to set it in this area of Manila that's known to be, always flooded, because during the typhoon season, it's in a valley, so they're always like, it's always flooded. And I was doing research, and I found these archival photographs of people standing in the water and just like posing in the flood. And then I found these archival photos of the flood shot from above, and the cars looked like almost looked like miniature, and that's how sort of I got the idea to shoot the flood in miniature in the end as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating. What's the neighborhood that?
Yeah, so we shot, it's set in Marikina, but I live in Quezon City, and it's just practical if we shot, we found a place similar to that, with this kind of house from that period that's not too far away, just in practical terms. Like, and we found this house that had sort of a kind of character, it's all wooden, and it has this sort of long corridor that I thought would suit the story well, because it's sort of like, she has to, it's like a rite of passage, she goes up and down this corridor so many times throughout the film. So
Yeah, yeah. So I was curious about, in the home, her relationship with her mother is, it seems that it's quite strained because the burden of her mother's work. She's always exhausted when she gets home, and so they do the sort of ritual with her hair and the not talking in front of the television. And the way that that's shot, I thought was really lovely, because it's really like these close-ups. And I was curious about how you sort of thought about cinematography in relation to the film.
yeah, so I think a lot of my work is about, I use scale a lot,
Yeah.
from Big Boy and then this film as well. I think, like, when you're out of control, like when you feel you feel tiny, and then when you have more control of things, you're almost like a godlike figure. And I remember feeling, in between these kind of states of control so much when I was a kid, mostly out of control. Like, everything was decided for me, and but I remember those times when you feel you're in control. And so I wanted to play, mix those close-ups and also those sort of mediums, and just get a sense of going between these states of power.
Yeah. Yeah, so I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about Los Otros, which is a sort of film studio and lab that's based in Quezon City. And I think it was through Los Otros that you sort of began to work with Maria Estela Paiso, who did the short that preceded the film, which is kind of, referencing a different kind of Marcos era. Could you talk a little bit about Los Otros and how you began to work with other filmmakers?
Yeah, sure. My partner and I, John Torres and I, started showing our own films in our garage in sort of the early 2010s, and slowly, and then it started to show works of of fellow filmmakers that we had become friends with, inside and outside of the Philippines, and just show things that we knew otherwise wouldn't get shown in Manila. And then we started to do workshops, and we invited artists, people who are also involved in these artist-run film labs, people who work with celluloid, also, especially in one filmmaker came in and did a workshop on how to make a film without a camera. So all these different ways of making. Basically, we wanted to show that there's so many ways to make a film, not just what you see like there's this indie film boom, I guess, and now it's like a mainstream indie boom. But we wanted to show that there's other ways of making. So we had the space. We lived upstairs mostly, and so we thought we would clear the first floor and make it sort of activate a space. Yeah, and a few years ago we were commissioned to make a new work by a Korean group called the AAMP, the Asian Artist Moving Image Project. But we were just about to do a residency in Berlin, and so we thought, we should get other younger filmmakers to make stuff with that money. So we asked 3 young female filmmakers to make new work. So Estella was one of those 3, and we were really pleased with all of the 3 that were made. So yeah, it's been really nice to work, to go back and forth between making our own films and doing a little curating, and also doing a little, to commission new, young filmmakers to make new works as well.
Great. Well, I want to make sure that we have time for questions, so we can open it up to questions from the audience, and then, I also have like a million questions, so I can always ask more. But do we have any questions from the audience for Shireen? Yeah.
Hi, Shireen.
Hey, David.
Hi, Shireen.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I was really struck by, and you just touched on it, the kind of ritual around the television, but also when, just in general, I was curious, given the historical context that was happening in country throughout development and production, and this relating to your childhood experiences, what shades of meaning spaces of collective silence took on for you throughout the production?
Sorry, David. Your question sounded so beautiful, but I'm not too sure what.
Sure, yeah. It's just I guess for me, like spaces of people sitting together in silence, they relate to just on a somatic level, right? Like meditation or prayer, usually reverence of some kind. But that being centered around the television was really striking for me. And so just relating that both to your past, but then also the very like chaotic present in which you were making it.
Because I guess I was saying about like growing up in a family where we didn't talk so much to each other. We were either like watching TV together, or so it became sort of like you said, like this kind of ritual, kind of collective silence. I was looking into actually a lot of photographs of this like how the TV sort of played this kind of role. So I was looking at all these old photos, and there's this one scene where where's it? I was trying to, they were actually listening to the tapes, the audio cassette tapes, not the TV, but where they sort of just, they just leave her in the end. So it's like, I feel like there was this sense of kind of being together, but then in the end, I feel like she's really empty. I feel like, that's a really good question, David. I have to think about it more though, actually.
I think there's a question right here. And it is interesting too that in those moments of silence, there's often the hum of the TV in the background, the clock ticking. So the house itself, it's it's almost like with the curtains and the breeze, it's almost like breath. I mean, there's sort of an anthropomorphism in some ways because you're so close to the house for the duration of the film.
Hi. I think I understand the overall, how should I say it, the feeling of the movie, the emotions of the movie. I was trying to understand for lack of a better word, the plot, the relationships between the people in the movie, and there's a lot of focus on long scenes of just a face or listening, but I'm trying to put together, the whole movie, and it's very difficult. The scene, with the mannequin floating down the river. I guess it's symbolic of something, but doesn't I don't know where that kind of came from. Um, and then the relationship between the uncle and almost there was like some kind of subliminal something between the mother and the uncle, um, and so I'm just maybe you can help understand this whole relationship of the characters because I couldn't put it together.
Okay, that's. I mean, it's part of my intention actually. I mean, I wanted to sort of. I make films as a way to try to make sense of a kind of childhood that's very fragmented. I feel when I was always trying to I was kind of lost in many ways and trying to piece together my who I am, and I feel like we're always pushed to grow up, and what does that even mean, like to grow up? It's Does that mean when you grow up you stop growing? I feel like we should always be growing, we shouldn't really ever stop. We should always be sort of figuring out who we are. I think if you figure out who you are, you're kind of boring, like you're kind of dead inside. I think you should always be growing as a person. So yeah, thank you for your question. The relationships definitely is also that's something I trying to figure it out in my own life, relationships. So this girl's pretty much left her own, and her dad has a twin brother. That her dad, identical twin brother. Her dad's the opposite of the twin, so her dad's a really quiet guy. The twin is like this rock star in a band called The Futures. And he and his family migrated to Japan, whereas his twin migrated to Saudi to work. And so his family, the uncle and his family came to visit, and they sort of like invaded in a way her personal space for like a weekend. And so she's, there's all these things that she's kind of trying to figure out from this visit, like about her dad and about her mom, and maybe there's something going on between the mom and the identical twin brother. So there's like a lot of questions basically that also remain unanswered for her.
I think in the back.
Okay. Hi, I was thinking about because your film was screened also with the short film beforehand. I was thinking about things that had overlap with that, and for me, what was striking is that actually, when in the short films, it was clear that a lack of faces, but I would say that there were enough shots in your film also enough to call it a pattern in which there are a lack of faces, and it has to do with. So I don't hope that this is too repetitive, but it has to do with framing and cinematography, so maybe that's the answer. But for instance, the very first time the very first shot that we have, the very first scene when Yael is introduced, but also as you just referred to the uncle with the futures tattoo, etc. So there are many shots in which faces are lacking, and I was just wondering whether, since we have the director here, maybe if you could reflect on that or say something about the lack of faces there.
That's a very good observation. It's not very intentional. I wasn't thinking about that at all. Interesting pairing then. With Estella's film. But I have heard that a lot. The focus on different body parts. But the first time I heard the lack of the heads. That's interesting to me. It just so happened. So the cinematography during the shoot, we had sort of two strategies because after the first few days of shoot, I felt like all the footage we had was really kind of very composed. And because I'm such a visual person, I'm very particular about the composition. But I felt it was too stiff, so I felt like we had to have another plan. And so I said, let's have another camera rolling in between takes. So she's just shooting. One of our cinematographers is just shooting, what's going on. The unstaged is basically the actress, our main actress on the set. So just being herself, and a lot of that footage actually went into the final cut because it gave sort of this life to it that I felt was lacking in all the composed shots. So it was like a lot of jump cuts in between from the composed to the sort of more kind of unscripted stuff. So maybe it was just a mix also of the headless stuff and from the uncomposed. Yeah.
I felt like I was watching a documentary. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to know, who are your influences and what are you working on next?
Oh, thank you. I was very much inspired by The Spirit of the Beehive, a Spanish film by Victor Erice, and Nuri Ceylan, a Turkish filmmaker who one of his early films was called Kasaba, the Small Town. So these two films were, really big influence on me, and a lot of different. I guess I was inspired by a lot of photographers as well, filmmakers and photographers. And the next film I'm working on, there's two films I'd like to make, but being a parent now, it's like, it's a struggle to keep making, but trying to find a way. So there's this film called The Wild Duck that I'd like to make, set in LA actually, and based on my father's stories when he migrated here. So after I grew up in Japan, he came here to LA to sort of try his luck, and I went to college in Canada. And sort of I heard about this from my mom that he had this sort of encounter with a wild duck. So I wanted to make a film where he would play himself, but he actually passed away last year, so I have to find someone else to play him. But someday I'd like to make this film in LA. And the other film is a short film that I'd like to make using archival photographs during the American colonial period in the Philippines, and they're all photographs of roads. So it would be like a road movie, but with only these still archival photographs of roads.
I think there was another question right here.
I just wanted to say it was a really beautiful film. And one thing I was just interested in is the gradual progression of things towards becoming a little bit more fantastical and sort of less detached. And it seems in particular the visit from the family and watching the late night movies was sort of a turning point. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. I wanted to sort of create this sort of monotony of her every day, where she's on her own, and then she's just like the visit basically of the relative sort of shakes up her world, right, and gets her. Well, she was always kind of, I feel like, imagining, making do with what was there, trying to find ways to play with her monotonous environment. But then when they come, they sort of shakes inside of her or something, and she's this pen with about this pen advertisement. And so I grew up in Japan, where I was always watching these ads, these like really hilarious ads. The ads are great in Japan in between shows, and so I was like really influenced by these ads and how they sort of like can influence kids so much. And I wanted to show sort of this also the influence of these objects to buy, and how they can sort of get obsessed, make kids obsessed basically with these things.
Any other final questions? Oh, in the back.
Hi, Shireen. That was so special. Thank you. I am wondering what it's like to see this film now, after it's sort of been in the world for like 7-8 years, and also what you see in it now that you're a mother, and if that experience has like affected just how you've seen this project.
like for a while there, I didn't want to watch it too much, but then now I was watching a little bit. I always noticed something, and I was like, oh yeah, I had forgotten all these details. But it's interesting that you say that. When we were shooting, I was pregnant at the time, and I think it worked out really well because I was. I know. I feel like you gotta in film when you're making film, you gotta trust your gut a lot, and I feel like I just a lot of things I just didn't let to try not to compromise too much, and just like we have to have to get it done this way. So I think that helped me being pregnant, making it, because it's like I don't want to I felt like I have to find a way to get it done. Yeah. Now being a parent, I feel like also I have to find a way to keep making and find a way to not be such a perfectionist. Like I feel like I was always growing up, and also this character, I feel like it's very much like me. She, when she wrote something and it wasn't perfect enough, I'd have to erase it. If it wasn't perfectly between the lines, I would erase it. And so all these kind of eccentricities about the character that I feel like were based on my experience, like a mix of just my own like perfectionism, and also I don't know, growing up feeling like I didn't have much control. Like I was just, of even what I'd end up doing later on. I feel like I had to, get good grades so that I can get into a good college, so I can get a good job, so I could move to the U.S. It was like this whole thing laid out for me that I was like, do I even have a choice in this? And so I feel like, I think filmmaking allowed me to do it, and it's kind of given me a confidence that, like, I didn't have, growing up. So I feel really thankful that I have these opportunities, because I used to be so nervous talking in front of people. I'd be like shaking. So it's really good every time I talk. I have to talk. It helps. It's kind of like a therapy, I guess.
Any other questions? Well, maybe I'll finish with just one question about the title, since you had mentioned when you introduced the film that it was sort of based on a dream. And you mentioned just now that when you were a kid, you were maybe more nervous. And I just was curious about the idea of nervous translation, and if you could speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, this dream. Yeah, so a lot of there's some of these dream sequences that maybe didn't make so much sense, like in the film, but I feel like they had to be there to sort of throw off, there's so many things that you don't even plan, I feel like, and that you don't even think about, but that you're in your subconscious. So I wanted to put that in there, and just because it was also the idea for the film also came from a dream, I felt like there's an ode to dreams. But yeah, I feel like there's this. I feel like we're kind of what's the word? Almost brainwashed into sort of feeling that we need products to solve our problems. But I feel like it's more like this disconnect between what the world around us and the world within. For me, that was really I realized that was sort of what I wanted to figure out with this film.
That's great. Thank you so much, Shireen, for sharing your work with us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jasmine.